Hi, I want to thank you and sincerely welcome you to this presentation where we're going to learn the basics of clean eating. Clean eating is definitely a journey, especially in today's culture. So if you are new, you have to realize that you're going to get there in steps, in increments, and it's not going to be, don't feel pressured that you have to do everything overnight because my family has been on this journey for 15 years, and there's still things that we're perfecting. In fact, today, for the first time, my husband just made some plantain chips. We like to go to, we spent some time earlier this year in Central America and in Mexico, and down in Central America, we are easily able to buy plantain chips. And so we have been toying with the idea how we're going to make them. Anyway, so today he made them for the first time. So, like I say, there's always something new that you're going to learn and always something new that you're going to try to incorporate into your diet. But this video, the purpose of this video is the very basic steps so you can understand what is necessary for clean eating. I hope that you're watching this video before you are looking at the other materials that have come with this transition kit bundle. So the other materials might make a little bit more sense to you. So anyway, again, welcome. So I just want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Lisa Ande Garcia, and I'm the founder of Whole Child Learning and Wellness. I love to encourage people, especially families with children who struggle, to change their lives for the better through healthy eating, because what we put into our bodies is the foundation of our well-being. So if we have kids who struggle, or if we have chronic illnesses ourselves, we are going to be able to turn a lot of that around just through purposeful knowing, purposefully eating, and knowing what we're putting into our bodies. So I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and that is a health coach who uses lab testing to help create protocols for diet and lifestyle changes, looking for hidden opportunities just to enhance wellness. I'm also a certified autonomic response testing practitioner. That's through the Clean Heart Academy. And that means that I can use a very specific form of muscle testing and energetic testing to also help identify opportunities and to develop protocols as well. Some people don't want to do or can't do lab testing. Some people want to do both. And I can do lab testing and energetic testing both face-to-face and distance. I also teach both brain gym and rhythmic movement training, which are movement-based programs to help with brain development. So we have a child who is struggling with school and in academics, and we need to attack this from both ends. So in a nutshell, we have to figure out physiologically what are going to put out those fires and that inflammation, but also because there is all that inflammation, there are parts of the brain that haven't fully connected. So we can use movement based programs because the brain develops and the brain connects through movement. So we're kind of getting it through both ends. I was an educator in the schools for nearly 25 years, and I was working with struggling students and disadvantaged students, both economically, emotionally, and academically. And basically my entire career, the second job I ever had really was working in a facility with developmentally disabled children, and I didn't end up there on purpose. It was actually kind of an accident, which there's really nothing that's an accident, but it was kind of an accident as far as I considered it. But ever since then, my whole life has been serving kids who struggle in one way or another. And last but not least, because this is, of course, the biggest learning opportunity for anyone, and that is that I'm a mother of 3 children. My second, who is 19, has moderate autism. He basically has severe language impairment, so that makes things a little bit difficult. And so we've been on this journey since he was nearly 3 years old. And my older one also has always struggled with ADD. And so when they were little, they had a lot of some of the same symptomologies physiologically. And so we were actually treating them physiologically a little bit the same for the first couple of years. And then we kind of more focused on my son with autism. And it was during that time when we soon realized, when they were little, how important the food was. So we did start our journey all the way about 15 years ago. And like I said earlier, this is a journey. This isn't something you change overnight. There's habits, there's knowledge, there's resources. There's a lot of things that have to be into place. So you just take things one step at a time. Just set little goals for yourself. Just know that you're always going in the right direction, and this is going to be a process. When I was in the schools, I saw a lot of kids. So I worked with struggling kids. I had, for a long time, for many, many years, I was specialized in mathematics. So I would work with kids, especially who struggled in mathematics. And a lot of my students would also have a lot of physiological problems, of course, attention. But I remember one student in particular, he had really severe stomach aches. He was really skinny. And I knew even then, because we were already on this journey with my children, I knew that he was suffering at least with severe dysbiosis in his gut. And there's when you're, some of you may be teachers as well in the public schools. And when you're in the public schools, you can't really do or say anything. And especially when you're working in in an environment where in a very impoverished area, what are you going, even if you told them what you thought, they can't even afford to do anything about it. So, I really felt like I had my hands tied. And so that's one of the reasons why I left the schools, because I knew that by the time I left the schools a couple years ago, I had already, got my certification for functional diagnostic nutrition. I had already done all my movement training. Like I had already most of my certifications. So I knew that I needed to help children in a better way. Or more impactful for them. There were already great teachers out there, so I knew that I needed to leave so I can help children who really needed it in a different way. So that's why I'm here. And in this video, no matter what your reasons are for wanting to try a clean food diet, there's going to be a countless benefits. So maybe you're here because you or your child are struggling with symptoms. Maybe they're brain related, maybe there's brain fog or some attention or academic issues, or maybe you just know that it's something that you need to do and it's something you've been wanting to do. So it's a brand new year and you're going to start, and to prevent some symptoms from coming. So but there's going to be so many benefits that you will experience when you start switching over your eating to a clean eating lifestyle, which is increased energy, more positive mood, better emotions, more clarity in your thinking, clearer skin. Our children who are on the spectrum tend to have severe eczema. Maybe you're struggling with a lifetime of acne or even psoriasis. Healthier gut and digestive system. This is just a short list of many things that you might experience. So, and at the end of this talk, I'll introduce how you can work with me to support your effort and so you can take action. If you're watching this video, then you have purchased this transition kit add-on bundle, which I'm very thankful for, because I really hope that this will give you a head start before doing the challenge to start learning about the basics of going clean. So when you're on the challenge, you might take things, even if you've already started a little bit, you might be able to take things up one extra notch. And hopefully you're watching this video before diving into the other resources, because there's a ton of resources that are on this page, the downloads. And so it might help it make a little bit more sense. Um, and and that the video might give you a little bit more generalized overview of what's needed before shifting your diet. All right. So the bottom line of why we're all experiencing either chronic illnesses or mental issues is because we live in a very heavily toxic world. So I hope that that's not a surprise to you anymore. When we started this journey, I don't think it was I don't know, I don't think we really considered the pollution and how much it really affects our body. But I'm going to tell you, the reason we are experiencing chronic illness is because we live in a toxic world. Our modern medicine and and the doctors, they are wonderful at acute illnesses. If you get in an accident, if you traveled and got bit by a bug and came down with a severe illness, they will exactly know what to do, and they're the people to go to. But what modern medicine has failed us is they just have, they don't have any understanding about how to treat chronic illness. And a lot of that is because they don't really understand the connection between toxicity and what's happening in our bodies. So our food and our water supply is extremely contaminated with chemicals and pesticides. Our foods, they're full of hormones, they're genetically modified, they're hybridized in a way that our bodies can no longer process them the way they're supposed to. So like the wheat, for example, is not even the same chemical structure as it used to be. So our bodies can't process it anymore. And that's why people are having such a hard time with gluten and celiac disease. The toxins, whether it's in the air, in the water, or in our food, they contribute to inflammation in our gut, which contributes to inflammation in our brain. Our gut and our brain mirror each other, and that inflammation contributes to a leaky gut. And by the way, you can have a leaky brain, just like so in our gut, the wall kind of open up, and we get these like little holes, and the proteins can go through, and that triggers our immune system. Well, our brain has a barrier, the blood-brain barrier, and it does the same thing. When it gets inflamed, it opens up, and things that are supposed to be protected by that blood-brain barrier can go through and cause inflammation in our brain. So over time, that constant inflammatory effect can lead to autoimmune disorders such as eczema, such as psoriasis, asthma, allergies, and more severe, celiac. If you're an adult, maybe even rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, Hashimoto's, MS, or Graves, or other severe forms. So autoimmune disease doesn't just happen overnight. It's a lifetime of building up to it. But our kids are getting autoimmune disorders from the beginning because they are born super toxic. Umbilical cord blood is showing 300 chemicals on average in a child before he's even born. So they're getting that from the mothers, and the mothers are getting that from their mothers. But it's a cumulative effect. And so in today's society, because in the last, let's say, 20 years, the toxins have gotten so out of control that the mothers of today, like for me, I was born in a less toxic environment, but by the time I had my kids, my body was full of toxins. So, it's nothing that we can blame ourselves because we didn't know and it wasn't our fault and we didn't put it there. But now if we know, we can try to do something about it. So the first thing that we can do is we can go for fresh produce, okay? So With the clean eating, produce is going to be the biggest part of your diet. You can also have some carbohydrates and plenty of protein, but fruits and vegetables are a good portion of your meals. Okay, your vegetable and especially your vegetable should be the centerpiece. That's what you think about. What are you going to make? This is the vegetable am I going to make, and then what can go around it, instead of saying, oh, here's the big steak, and then I'll add a tiny little salad or whatever. The vegetable has to be the biggest part. And I will tell you, just as a little tip, the diet, for example, MS, that is a debilitating disease or disorder, and it's autoimmune, and the most effective thing for that they are finding is a diet that is probably 90% vegetables. Okay, so believe it or not, that can completely reverse MS. So you can look that up. That's the Terry Wahls, WALHS, I think, diet for MS, but you can look that up. So your vegetable really needs to go in the centerpiece. You want to have, or you want to try to reduce how often you turn to frozen vegetables. That will depend on where you live and what time of year it is, but you always want to try to favor fresh versus frozen. But you definitely need to get rid of canned vegetables and canned fruit for sure. And if you, trying to save money and have a larger selection, your local farmers market sometimes can be more inexpensive. Sometimes it's a little more expensive. It depends. But you can have more of a variety, because sometimes your local farmers will be planting things that you would normally not see at the store. Okay, a thing about cleaning your produce. So when you come home from the grocery store, you need to clean it, or even if you grow it in your garden. Okay, so in our garden, I remember, we saw evidences of snails, or like, well, we definitely want to make sure we clean our vegetables, because you don't know what's been climbing on it, you don't know what's been sniffing it, what's been licking it, what bird pooped on it or whatever. So regardless, even if it's organic, because organic does not mean necessarily that there are no chemicals being used. There are like organically approved chemicals. So, the FDA or whatever still has a little looseness when it comes to organic. So things still have chemicals on it. And those you can't just like really rinse them off. You do have to kind of have a strategic way of washing them. Also, like for example, apples. I don't know if you've realized, but apples are super shiny. Apples on the trees are not super shiny. Apples have been dipped in wax to keep them making look pretty. My husband literally, when he makes the kids their lunch, he scrapes all the wax off the apples, and he has this little plate full of wax that came off the apples, if we're going to let them eat the peel. Otherwise, we peel them for them so that they're not eating the waxy peel. So one of the ways to soak your produce is in 1 teaspoon of Clorox per gallon of water. I know that might sound kind of, weird for some of you, but that's definitely one of the protocols. It's Clorox tends to break down into salt water. Or you can put 1 tablespoon of hydrogen peroxide per gallon of water, and then, either way you can soak your veggies, and so it can kill things like E. coli and all the little stuff that might be in there after you, rinse it and get the obvious dirt off of it first. But if you're a little bit more serious and actually want something a little bit more simple, want something that's actually a little bit more simple, you can get this ozone generator. It's called A to Z. If you look online at Amazon, it's under $70, probably 67 or something, 69 if I can remember. It's one of the only ozone generators that has tubing that you can use to clean your produce. Most of them are bigger machines that are used for purifying your air. So you probably don't have much of a choice, but this is the one that we have as well. We hang it on the wall, and all you do is you take a bowl. It has to be a glass or ceramic type bowl, not a metal bowl. I think even plastic would be okay, even though, we try to stay away from plastic. But you don't want the metal because with the it makes a chemical reaction, I think, with the ozone. But you put your produce in, you submerge it in water. Then you take the little tubing and you put this has a little lava rock on it, and you put it and you submerge it in the water, and then you turn it on, and there's different settings. If you set it on 2, the settings come with minutes. So setting 2 is 5 minutes, and that's what we use to clean our produce. But there's different settings for different amounts of minutes. You can even clean your meats. And actually, when you clean your meats, you get all that like junk that kind of floats up at the top, and you can and beef and chicken and stuff. Not only does it kill bacteria and stuff, that's what the ozone does, but it actually increases the shelf life of your produce. So that's why we like it, because our food lasts longer, our berries and stuff, because berries can mold easier, so they last a lot longer. If we wash it and do that, it helps it last longer. All right, so the next thing, or the next point, is to avoid processed foods, right? Processed foods is a major no-no in the clean eating diet. So you want to use as many natural and fresh ingredients as you can. If it comes in a package, you need to consider whether there's a more natural version of that ingredient. Shredded cheese can come in a block of cheese. Actually, if you bought cheese in a block versus shredded, and you actually shred it yourself, it's actually cheaper, because it's just cheaper to buy things that's not cut, that you have to cut yourself. A rule of thumb basically is anything in a box or a package or a can would be processed, unless it's in like a bag or a box, just so that things don't fall apart, like noodles, right? Noodles are in a bag just so they're just not there, unless you buy it in bulk. So some things are unavoidable, but you need to think about, if you're buying things in a box, is this processed, or should it be in a box to contain it? Basically, our pantry has everything is loose, and they're in bags. We buy everything from bulk. We have a few things in cans. We buy our coconut milk in can. I'm not even sure what else. I think we might have 1 or 2 other things that might be in a can, and it might have been there for a long time. But really, you're trying to avoid the metals, especially if it's acidic. Tomatoes in a can, tomatoes are very acidic, and it's going to leach if they have that lining, they're going to leach the chemicals from the lining, or if it's just a plain can, it's going to leach the metal from the can, and you don't want that in your food. So tomatoes, you can just cut them up yourself. You really don't need to buy it in a can. Even nowadays, tuna can be bought in a pouch. Not that that's ideal, because I'm not sure what the pouch is made of, but it's better than the metal in the can. So it's a step in the right direction. So there's I think we have like some tuna pouches and stuff, but most everything in our pantry is in bags. We buy all our flours and everything in bulk. So the bottom line is you're going to have to start cooking more. So you're going to have to make cooking a priority. I mean, there's no really getting around it. There are some ways that you can make cooking faster, but you are going to have to prepare your own foods. But you don't have to be, a chef. You just need to be able to follow a simple recipe. If you don't have a lot of time to prep and cook, you might want to get a slow cooker, food processor, things that help you cut things up faster, and a crock pot or a slow cooker. You just throw everything in there, and then you turn it on, and in a few hours it's done. Actually, we like to cook our steel cut oats that way. We just put 1 cup of oats, steel cut oats, not flake oats, but steel cut oats, or Irish oats as some people call it, and 4 cups of water and some cinnamon, and then we leave it for like about 4 hours, and then between 4 and 5 hours, and then it's ready to go. So it does make some appliances make cooking a lot faster, especially if you have a busy schedule. if you're going, hopefully you're able to grow your own food because it actually tastes better, and because it's you're going to pick it ripe versus it's been picked before it was ripe and then it ripened on the way, like on the boat over the ocean. Um, and by the way, there are some vegetables or even fruits that have cancer fighting properties, but only if it has been ripened on the plant and then picked and not picked before. So foods can be more healthy if you've let it ripen all the way. So that's why going to your farmer's market is going to be a little bit advantageous, because they usually are not going to be picking things, as if they're still green. Um, our favorite kitchen tool besides the Vitamix, because the Vitamix is our favorite, and yes, it's an investment, but it is well worth buying a Vitamix because you can make anything in it. But is our immersion blender. So, that's something inexpensive you can buy. We buy it at Costco, and at Costco it usually comes with a little mini processor or something, attachments. I don't usually use those, but we have been using immersion blender since our kids are babies because we made baby food with it. We use it to mix pretty much anything. I even use it when I make my goat milk soap, bar soap, because it needs an immersion blender. So tools can be very helpful. So those are our favorite tools. My husband today, so we made the banana chips, as I said, because the other day somewhere he picked up a slicer. So we don't usually have tools. We usually cut things up ourselves. I mean, we're pretty, we don't have a lot of tools. But he bought a slicer because he knew that if he was going to cut the plantains, that he needed something sturdier than probably his knife so he can make it thinner. And it worked perfectly. So you know what? There is something to be said by investing in a couple tools and some good knives. Tips for transitioning to a clean eating diet. So, track your current diet. So first, before you begin into transitioning to a diet, just take some stock on what you have in your pantry and your refrigerator right now. You need to be honest, think about, okay, this would qualify for clean food. It's clean, it's whole, it's a real ingredient, it's a real food. Or these are in boxes, they're pre-prepared. And I'm going to say, I grew up on Hamburger Helper, right? I grew up on a whole pantry full of boxes. Okay, that's when I was a kid. My husband grew up in Mexico, where everything they had to make, they had to go and take the corn off the cob and take it to the mill and grind it to make the tortillas. So, I guess when we got married, we had a little bit of a blending, but so it wasn't, we were already starting to eat well. So by the time my kids had issues, we already had the mindset of eating well, but there was still a lot that we didn't know. So first, look through your refrigerator and your pantry and be honest with what you have. What you're going to do is you don't necessarily have to throw everything out. What you need to do is think about, when I consume this, how can I replace it? Okay, so instead of replacing it with the same thing and then you always have the same problem, think about consuming it and then replacing it with something else. And it could be your cereal or just something that you don't have to do it all at once. But there are a few things that you might really want to consider getting rid of that you should never ever eat. That's anything that contains aspartame. Any type of aspartame is like NutraSweet. It's an artificial sweetener, and it's found in sodas or in drinks most of the time. So if you have any kind of soda or beverage that has artificial sweetener and it says aspartame, that's a no-no. Nobody ever should drink that. I wouldn't even give it away because I wouldn't want, if I knew that it was so bad for somebody, I wouldn't even want to give it away to somebody else, because I wouldn't want to, be harming them. Another thing is sucralose is the same thing. It's maybe not quite as bad as aspartame, but it's pretty close. And then MSG is the monosodium glutamate, especially if you have a child with behavior issues, because the glutamate, we make glutamate in our brains already, but if they're getting extra glutamate, it is extremely excitatory and it causes a whole bunch of problems in them not being able to calm down, and stimming and all kinds of things. And then food coloring. So those are artificial food coloring. I mean, it's just basically petroleum, and it's also neurotoxin. So anything with aspartame, sucralose, MSG, and food coloring, I would say if you have it, toss it. Otherwise, maybe the food coloring, because it's in so much, you have to, maybe that one, as you replace it, try to find a replacer that doesn't have the food coloring in it. And, for example, like canned tomatoes, who needs canned tomatoes? You just buy fresh tomatoes and cut them up, So, but again, this is a journey. So these are things that you phase in. You just decide what is the one thing I'm going to tackle this time and just keep going in the direction. And, it might take a while for you to completely transition, but we didn't even realize that we were transitioning. We just over time started realizing, oh, we shouldn't do this. Oh, we shouldn't do this. So hopefully this transition kit will give you some really much better headway than we had. And the Clean Eating Challenge, with the support of other people, hopefully you can kickstart your journey a little bit faster than we did. Also, you need to start gathering your recipes, okay? So luckily in today's, look, there's an iPad with the few clicks you can find healthy recipes. The other day I had a pumpkin after Halloween, and I just put in healthy pumpkin pie recipes, and I found a new recipe. So it's super easy these days. But what I would do is master find one really clean breakfast dish, and then go to lunch and find one clean lunch dish that you can make, and a dinner. So at least you have something for all the parts of the day, and then even a snack. And that's a big thing, is about snacking. You need to really think about how are you going to replace your whatever you snack on. So for me, when I snack, I don't snack because I'm hungry. I snack because I like to crunch, I like to munch, and it's because I think it's just more the motor, and I want to do something with my mouth, I guess. So what I make is flaxseed crackers. So I'm going to show you right here. I wish I don't have it here, but I take a cup of flax seeds and a cup of flax meal. I do that. You could use flax seeds all by itself, but I find them to be a little more brittle. The flax meal stabilizes them more. Or you can use pure flax meal. So I use a total of 2 cups. And then from there, you put it in a bowl and you put water in it and you let it soak. So it doesn't even have a certain amount of water. I just put a bunch of water and let it soak. If it's too much water, let it soak longer. It will absorb it. But before I let it soak, I put in nuts and pieces of fruit, lots of seeds. That's other kind of seeds. That's what I put in there. You could make it more savory. Oh, I put cinnamon too. So you can make it kind of on the sweeter side. I don't put sugar or anything, but the cinnamon and fruit make it kind of on the sweet side. Or you can make it on the savory side, and you could put spices in it, which I don't usually make it that way. I make it the other way. And then when you soak it, what flaxseed does is when it's soaked, it becomes like a goo, and then when it dries, it sticks together. So literally taking the seeds and soaking it, and then once it's kind of paste, like a paste, then you spread it on a parchment paper on a cookie sheet. And if you have a dehydrator, that's best. If it's sunny outside, maybe, and it's hot, you could put it outside. Otherwise, I put it in my oven at 200. I don't like to cook things like that because 200 is considered cooking, but it works great. So you put it in your oven, and then when the top part gets nice and hard after a few hours, because it's only at 200, I flip it over, peel off the paper, and then another hour or two for the other side to get done. And I just reuse that paper. It has residue on it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And then I have something to snack on that A, cures my munchies. B, it's super helpful because flaxseed has a lot of omega-3. and see it. It'll help your digestion. If you're not going regular, you probably will now because there's a lot of fiber in that and a lot of seeds. So it's super healthy. So just having a snack that you know that this is what I'm going to be snacking on. I also like seaweed, like things I get at Costco, or but just be intentional. Think about your snacks. Okay. Okay, so one simple way that you can transition is starting to replace your white refined carbs. It's a good way to begin making the transition since it's just a small change. So if you're just replacing bread for bread, or white rice for brown rice, it doesn't really feel like you're making a change. You're switching what you're doing, but it doesn't feel like you're completely changing the idea of what you're eating. So you can have some complex carbs when you're eating, but you really shouldn't have refined carbs. Okay, so you really need to eliminate your refined flours as much as possible. So you can replace all your white bread within white rice and white flour with whole wheat versions. Um, and so for bread, go with the sprouted bread or the Ezekiel bread. The Ezekiel bread is probably in your frozen section if you're looking for it. But sprouted grains, it has a lot more protein. So anyway, a whole wheat version is much healthier than just the refined carbohydrates. All right, so are you ready to get started? I'm really excited to see you during the challenge. So I really hope that you engage during the challenge, not only for your benefit, because if you have questions, then I can answer, other people can answer, but go on there to help reassure and answer other people's questions, because everybody has ideas, everybody knows something, so we can help each other. So imagine your child calm and relaxed, or maybe free of fears, afraid of virtually nothing, with skin free of eczema, glowing, having normal stools on a daily basis, and maybe willing to do what you say. Imagine you being able to easily take on the challenge that life throws your way with energy and vitality, and being calm and relaxed even when there are challenges coming your way, because we all know that us moms, we especially if we have kids with special needs, there's a lot that we do, and we're doing so much for everybody else that it kind of strips the energy from us. We are definitely don't remember how to be calm, and we don't know how to relax. So changing you and your family's diet is the first step in being able to attain some of these things that I just mentioned. However, if you want to get serious but need more support, or would like to fast track your success, then please join me in some one-on-one coaching. So by working with me, we can dig deeper to find other hidden opportunities to address the issues that you are experiencing or your child is experiencing. I understand the different variables that contribute to your child's learning and behavior issues. And I also understand the different variables that affect the stressed out parent, okay? Because we all are one, aren't we? So I use comprehensive questionnaires, lab testing, energetic testing, as ways to pinpoint areas that need addressing. And if necessary, or if it's relevant, I can develop a home movement program to help develop those immature areas of the brain of your child that maybe have not connected because they started experiencing all that neuroinflammation, since they were really little, and the brain didn't really have a chance to connect right. So we can look at how to put out the fire, and then we can look at how to build up the brain. So if you're ready to finally get to the bottom of the issues affecting your family, Then at the bottom of this page, you just scroll down and you'll see a book me button to schedule a free 20-minute consultation to see if coaching packages is right for you. So I look forward to getting to know you during the challenges, and I hope that we'll be able to talk soon. Thank you.